Studleys. What's going on, Studleys?
Yo.
Hey man, not much. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. My gosh, this is like you guys just have like badass names. You really do. Like,
Well, I think we may have said this before, but our middle kid is named Tuff, Tuff. So his name
Tough
is Tuff
Studley.
Studley. So we are.
And listen, when a man introduces himself to you and you say, "Oh, what's your name?" "Oh, it's Seth Studley." You say, "Yes, I will marry you." Yes. I don't know
Yeah.
what he was asking, but I said yes. So I'm here for the
I've married
name.
so many ladies just from the name.
From your name.
Just kidding. You're the only one.
I guarantee you've never lost a date because of your name. I don't know if I've told you guys that story, but the true story. Yeah, I did, didn't I? Yeah. For those of you guys in the audience who want to hear it really quickly, I was in college, a freshman, had my eye on this girl for like months, and saw her at a party. A couple cups of liquid courage later, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go up and talk to her. Went up and talked to her, and I said, hey, just wanted to come over and meet you. And I've noticed you all around campus, and I've always wanted to meet you. What's your name? And she just like lit up. And you know how like you can tell like, okay, they're into me or they're not. She like lit up.
Yeah.
It was a vibe, and she like lit up, and she's like, yeah, my name's Heather. She goes, it's really funny though that you mentioned that because I've seen you all over campus and I've always wanted to meet you. And I was like, oh, sweet.
All right. So
Right.
this is going somewhere. Yeah.
Awesome. And she's like, what's your name? And I said, Larry. And she's like, what? And I'm like, Larry. And she's like, are you serious? And I'm like, yeah, I'm serious. And she's like, I'm sorry. And she started laughing.
Oh,
like
That's
literally started
horrible.
laughing. And I'm like, what the hell's so funny? And she's like, I'm sorry. And then she patted me on the back.
oh no.
Like,
oh,
she's like, I'm
ladies.
sorry, hon, this is not going to work for me. And I'm like, okay, why? And she's like, I don't know how to tell you this, but your name is not a bedroom name.
Ew.
And I'm like, oh God. Right.
Yeah.
I was just like, I think I started like to twitch a little bit, and I was like, okay, great. I'm going to go home and cry. Thank you for that. And ruining
That's
my
when you know
sex
you
life.
accidentally approached a hussy. That's
Right.
that's where the real problem in the story happened.
Right. So,
Good
it's
thing it
funny.
didn't go anywhere.
Right. I mentioned that, and I've mentioned that story countless times, and most of the time people will be like, wow, you dodged a bullet. Congratulations. Right.
For real.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
real.
Absolutely.
Well, we love your
that's
name.
funny.
Okay,
We love
we
it.
love it.
I
I give you a
appreciate-
nickname every time we see each other. I have to
I know.
say 10 versions of your names because I love it.
I appreciate that. And so what was my nickname this time?
Your nickname today was Larius Rucker, like Darius
Larius
Rucker.
Rucker.
I thought it was perfect.
I'll
I
take
thought
it.
it was delightful.
It's cool.
And all your fans can call you Larius from now on.
Hey, Hootie and the Blowfish are from
The blow
South
shit.
Carolina.
The blow shits.
Yeah. Are from South Carolina. So they were pretty
Where Seth
popular
is
back in the
from.
day.
That is very funny.
That is
Anyway.
good. All right. Well, since we're talking about meeting, right? How did you guys meet?
Ooh.
Okay, well, I'll give you the longest version and quick as possible, right? So after grad school, me and my buddies were in bands in college, right? University of South Carolina, in fact. And after college, we're like, all right, we got our degrees. Let's try this music thing full time. So we packed up on September 11th, 2001, the actual day that it all went down. Geez, I guess that's 22 years ago. Oh my gosh, that's such a long time ago. But anyway, left on that day, drove to Seattle pursuing music full time. And we did. We got a record label and toured and all that
He
stuff.
was in a band called Emery.
Yeah.
It's a Christian whatever band. I don't know.
And
Emo.
so
They still exist.
So we ended up in Maple Valley where the keyboardist's parents lived, and we stayed for him when we weren't on tour. And we'd go into the Starbucks all the time, and she worked at Starbucks. So I was like, oh, okay, who's this little lady back here, And I got a job there.
But listen,
and,
can I pause?
Oh, yeah.
Listen to this. When he met me,
oh, right.
I literally had shaved my head at one point. I had a mohawk at one point. I mean, I used to do like rainbow eyelashes. I'm Seattle all the
She's
way.
Seattle.
So like I didn't all look like this when he met me, but I had tattoos and stuff, but yeah.
So
I
what
know
was
I'm
it? She had a shaved head when you met her first?
Yeah, well, it had grown out a little bit, and
Okay.
she kind of had like
I
a
did it
fro
before
hawk. I was
Brittany
like,
did it. I made it cool first.
well, the way that Brittany did it was kind of like, okay, this is not
In
well,
distress.
this is balance. This is not balanced, right?
Right.
But you were doing it like, hey, this is fun. I do what I
Why
want. kind of,
not?
right? I prefer your long hair, by the way, for the record. I prefer
You
the
don't like the Sinead look?
no, I prefer the locks. And we worked together for a year. and she had a boyfriend. I was, doing other stuff. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. She broke up with her boyfriend.
No, the day I broke up.
The day.
I was like, oh, I'm kind of bummed out. Does anyone want to go anywhere? And Seth was like, I'll go.
Yeah. I was like, yeah,
And
let's.
then
How
we
about
went-
me?
I know, me next. I'll take it. So we went out, and that day, literally that day, we drove to a park. It's called Wilderness Park out here, and we sat on a log, and literally we're like, do you want to date? I don't know. Do you want to date? Yeah, I think I kind of want to date. If we date, we're going to get married. And if we're not going to get married, let's not date. That's literally what we said. Now, granted, we had worked together for a while, so we knew each other.
Yeah.
But we were like, if we're not going to do this, let's not do this at all. Like, if
Yeah.
we're not going to be serious, let's just not do it. So
That
that
was
was
Did your first kiss happen on that log?
probably.
I don't
No,
know.
I don't know. I don't think we had kissed.
I don't know.
We
Well,
did like a weird thing where we like didn't hug for 3 days just for fun. Like, we're quirky. Don't worry about it.
I told her, I was like, because I dated a lot of people, and I'm like,
Floozies?
what am I doing on here? Yeah, floozies.
You dated all the floozies.
The floozies.
The
Dated the floozies.
They will think you're a floozy.
Yeah. And I was just really intentional about it. I was like, hey, if this isn't gonna go somewhere, then
Right.
let's don't do it, kind of thing. And luckily, it didn't freak you out. And you're like, wow, this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And basically, we said, hey, let's don't date if we're not gonna get married
Right.
on the first freaking date, which was kind
We
of
set our intentions.
crazy.
Okay?
And then we were engaged 5 months later, married 8 months later.
Wow. So that's quite a that's quite an intense conversation when you're like, yeah, I just broke up with my boyfriend. Hey, you want to go out? Yeah, let's go sit on this log and talk about our future. And if there's no future, we're just gonna like go ahead and exit each other's lives. So
Let's sit on this log and talk about our future. That's
Right.
a great way to say that.
it's like the log
But
of
it was-
truth.
Right. Yeah. So that's our story. It's silly. It's great. It's dynamic. It's enticing. It should be made into a movie.
It should. It's like the Notebook, but on like Cliff Notes. But no, all kidding aside, did y'all like each other before? Like, did you have your eye on each other beforehand?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we always laugh that like we would look at the schedule because we worked at Starbucks, right? So it's like 4:30 in the morning, you're getting there, and we would look at the schedule and be like, yes, Seth is working. It's gonna be awesome. And he would say the same thing about me. Like he'd see my name on the schedule and get all excited. And so we learned to like know each other under, you're waking up at like 3:30, you're working these super like it's just really it's a super fun job. It was really, really intense. It was way different back then though. It was like real Starbucks, not like Walmart Starbucks like it is now. And so it was like very different. You actually had to make the coffee. And so it was really a great opportunity because we got to see how we cope with things when we're under pressure, when we're really tired, when people yell at you. Like we got to test all of that we weren't even dating. So it was like a really awesome. That's why I always am like, people work with other people. And if they're great and you like them, date them and marry them because you're seeing them under pressure. You're seeing them when like someone demeans them or they get a raise. Like you get to see all of the things of them without having any consequences, if that makes sense.
There were other girls there that liked me, and
That was funny.
I never thought of them as a wifey potential kind of thing. Like I saw all the stuff in Melanie. Is like, yeah, I could marry that. It's just something that I mean, that sounds weird, right?
I could marry that.
I can marry that one, kind of thing. But yeah, we were just intentional right from the get-go,
Mhm.
and it's served us since. 18 years later, here we are. So
That's so cool. That is really, really cool. It's funny. Jessica and I have been together. I've known her for 26 years
That's crazy.
and we've been married for 19. I always tell her, I was like, you have spoiled me for any and all women, if anything were to ever happen. And we've had the discussion. She's like, what do you think your dating life would be like? I was like, most dates would probably last about 7 minutes. Like, cause I think I would have a very low tolerance, like, and it sounds like probably pretty judgmental, but like, I think my tolerance for like certain things would just be like, let's not waste each other's time. Like,
Right.
let's just
Right.
move on here. Yeah,
May I reframe that? Because I think that's a
Yeah.
beautiful opportunity to reframe that because it's not about tolerance. Like you're on a different level.
Mhm.
You're not at the same level of, and now I'm saying that not to like toot your horn, but I'll toot your horn. Like you've worked really hard to raise the bar for yourself. And so if you've raised the bar so high that most women don't meet that standard, that's not a problem. That's not like I wouldn't tolerate it. That's like, no, my standards are way up here. If you could find a lady with standards way up here, then you might be talking. But,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
It's like going to steakhouses and like nice places, for 15 years. And then
Going to McDonald's.
making yourself imagine like, oh, wait a minute, what if I like had to morph or like transport back into like McDonald's, 29 cents cheeseburger days, which I've been there for sure. In the band, that's all we could do, right? And you're like, oh, that's terrible.
Right.
And so yeah.
I love this skit that Jim Gaffigan has on McDonald's, because it's a lot of like what you guys are talking about. It's like where you kind of get to the point in your life where it's like McDonald's is like, oh, I wouldn't even eat that. And then you're like driving home on a Friday night, like, well, it's late and I'm drunk and some fries sound really good. It's like go slumming again or something like that. That's what like the McDonald's is all about.
Yeah, he's hilarious.
But no, it's funny. I tell Jessica all the time, she's like, well, what is it that you appreciate about us or me or whatever? And I tell Jessica this, and Melanie, I don't know you well, but I know you, I think, well enough to where you and Jessica actually remind me a lot of each other. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is Jessica's the type of woman where she'll throw on some yoga pants, no makeup on, put her hair in a ponytail, like absolutely crush you during a workout, punch you in the arm, and then go have a beer with you at lunch, afterwards. Like that's the type of chick she is. And I love that about her. I cannot deal with like, oh my God, I cannot get sweaty.
Right.
Like, I don't want to go on a hike because there's the mud. Like, I just can't deal with somebody like that.
Right.
I mean,
I am that way. Like not the second way. I am the first way. Like I build stuff, I do things, I do hard stuff, I get dirty, I raise dogs. Like I do whatever the hell I want, and I do it all the way.
Some of the best moments.
I also want to be friends with your wife. Every time I see pictures of her, I'm like, God, I would be friends with her. Okay, go ahead.
No, so this is important. So every time like hard stuff happens, usually like, oh, like a tree fell on the shed, or my car broke down, which doesn't happen anymore, or like something hits the fan. Like I know that like we've always been there for each other. Hopefully you feel the same way. Like, okay, yeah, if stuff hits the fan, I will come there and like help and put myself in. So it's kind of like, like ride or die kind of thing, and I know that gets thrown around a lot, but it sounds like Jessica's your ride or die. You're like, hey, let's go do this thing. Like, okay, we're both into it. And like Melanie's down for like, okay, let's travel. I mean, we went to Vegas for a conference just like 2 days ago over the weekend.
Vegas for one night.
Yeah, it was just one night. It was a quick turnaround thing, and it was awesome, by the way. Yeah. And so I was going just alone, right? And I was like, I think that like less than 12 hours before my flight, I was like, Melanie, I really want you to go. Let's make it happen. Come on, let's do it. And she was like, yep. And then boom, I got the tickets and off we went, kind of thing. And a lot of people I don't think do that. Like, and I'm not, maybe I'm preaching to myself. Like when we overthink stuff like that, it's like, no, just go for it. Go, if you have the means to do it, then go for it. Don't be worried about mud or like, like
we built a lot of trust in each other that we like get that ride or die vibe. And like, especially if we're in a moment of crisis and shit hits the fan, we know that we can lean on one another. And that's important. Seth's not going to be like, ew, there's mud there. Like I know that he will help me with whatever I need, no matter what it is, and vice versa. And I think that's a skill that is amazing once you've developed it, but it is something that you must develop over time,
I love that. You guys are like partners in crime, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, thick thieves. Yeah.
There's no better power couple that I think should be leading the charge than Anatomy of Us and what you guys are doing. We're going to get into some things today that I think will really serve the audience, like, so for instance, what gets measured gets managed, which is fascinating to me. Planners and calendars can be the bad guy. And also just this whole element of actually planning together. Before we do that, though, I just want to hear about how did Anatomy of Us even get started and the work you guys are doing today?
Well, it started from a really terrible place. So when we were, I think it was like 3 years into our marriage, Seth was in grad school getting his master's in marriage and family therapy. I had just given birth to our second son in 15 months. So I had a 1-year-old sleeping in a crib and I'm holding a 2-week-old in my arms.
Irish twins.
They're even redheads. And at the time I was also leading worship at our church. So we were like really entrenched in the church world. Seth was attending a Christian college and I'm sitting there holding my newborn and he walks up and he's like all pale and weird. And he's like, I have something to tell you. And I'm like, what's going on? And he like gets down on his knee and he's like, I've been lying to you and I've been looking at pornography and whatever. Now, I had just given birth to a kid. My hormones are who knows where. all over all of the places. And I lost my freaking mind. I'm going to start by saying I did the wrong thing. Seth did the right thing. He told me that he was being, not unfaithful, but he told me that he'd been looking at porn, that he was lying to me or whatever. And I lost it. I threw the remote at him. And that was the beginning of the worst 2 years of our life. We tried to, I don't even know. He tried to repair. I tried to kill him. I literally gave him a black eye at one point in that season. And we got to, it was just so bad that we're like, we need to leave each other because we are self-destructing and we have children to take care of. And at one point, Seth was like, I think she's going to kill me vibes. And we drew a big fat line in the sand and we decided we're not going to just end this. We're going to fix it. And that was what started the whole thing. It was what started us diving into, okay, what books do we need to read? What people do we need to be listening to? What movies and documentaries and therapists and what the hell do we need to do to fix this? Then once we got through the worst parts of it, we turned around and went, why was this so hard? Like, why was this so incredibly challenging? Why weren't there any books for people like us? Like, where is the book for the chick who punched her husband in the face? Because all I could see at the time was like super vanilla, like marriage books, like, oh, just honor and obey him and like put on your heels and he will love you. And I was like, oh, well, that book's not for me.
There's a big difference in Larry's like girly voice and your girly voice is really funny.
Is mine like irritating and Larry's is funny?
No, I actually just realized that, wow, I was like, when you tried on that girly voice for a second, I was like, kind of like, it just didn't even sound right.
Yeah. Right.
Coming from you.
Oh, I agree. And so basically what we did was we looked backwards and went, how come it was so hard for us to find the resources that were really, really helpful? And then we looked forward and said, why don't we make them? There's nothing out there. Why don't we make them? Why don't we make them for the people who look like us? I have knuckle tattoos. I have face tattoos. I have my eyebrows tattooed on, but like at a tattoo shop.
Like Mike Tyson.
I had shaved my head at one point. Like there's got to be resources for people who like look like they're from Seattle proper, instead of everything feeling like hyper Christian or hyper soft or like uber whatever dainty. And so that's how it all started. We decided to document like what we had gone through. So that was the first 13 episodes of our podcast. They're super highly produced, very different. They have music in them, tons of interviews. And then that morphed into answering questions from our listeners, which has then turned into 500 episodes plus later, 4 million downloads plus later. And we're here today. We're doing high performance marriage coaching. I lead the women's group coaching. He has Badass Husband Mastermind. And we've just made this our life's work because it has transformed our life.
And I think it's kind of like, I don't know if it's the hero's journey. It's like, okay, I'm not aware of things. Something happens. I'm like, oh shit. Okay. What do I do with this? Either I can just lay down and die, or you can rise up and go, wait a minute. This, like you were saying, hey, this is a really hard thing. How did we get through it? And then asking yourself those questions and then looking around you and go, oh, wait a minute. There are very, very little resources out here. So we aim to create the resources we wished we had when we were going through just all that stuff, which was a lot of individual work, couples work. I mean, we've done all kinds of things, like tons of coaching, and coaching is therapy. Coaching and therapy is different, mind you. So tons of coaching, tons of therapy, hypnotherapy, just everything that we could, and like growth mindset versus fixed mindset, and just realizing, oh, wait a minute. Okay. We want this up here and we're doing this. Let's bridge that gap to get to where we want to be. Right. And I have to give a caveat or else I'm just up here bullshitting. I think we've had a lot of success in that. Like we both saved our marriage. We did a lot of hard work. We realized how we were and how we want to be. And we're working towards that every single day. And sometimes it is still a struggle. So don't think that like everything is perfect. We were having really deep conversations this morning, to be 100% honest, and really looking into the things of like, man, okay, I need to still grow here. And that's not a bad thing. I need to grow here and go out and get resources. Because if we could do it ourselves, if we could do it alone, then we would have done it by now. Right. So any of your listeners, join a mastermind, I know Dad Edge, obviously, do coaching, like get Audible subscriptions. Because if you're not, you're leaving a lot on the table. Yeah. And I still have a lot of room to grow. I think we both do, but I especially do. And that's what we're going towards. So that is how it started, out of, having a mess into a message and continuously growing every day, at least striving to.
Let's dive into one question that I want to ask. This is a great, I'm not trying to toot my own horn on the great question. What I'm trying to say is this is a great question for both of you to answer in your own perspective. So, Seth, I would love for you to answer this through the lens of you're a licensed family therapist, correct, by trade?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I would like for you to answer this question through the lens of that, if you're okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then Melanie, I would love for you to answer this question from a wife's perspective and a coach perspective as well. When it comes to, like, my 14-year-old plays football and he loves football. It's like his life. And, I couldn't imagine his team without the offensive line coach, without the QB coach, without the defense coach, coordinator, without the trainer, without all these people who are all coaching these young men on how to play the game and how to play it right. I take that a step forward where my son has never played quarterback. He's a freshman. He showed up to tryouts and they're like, what position do you play? He's 145 pounds. He's strong as an ox though. And he's like, I'm on the offensive line. The coach goes, not here. You're not. Cause he just didn't have the size. He's like, let me see how you throw the ball. He threw the ball. He's like, I think you can be my second string quarterback. And he's like, I've never played quarterback. He's like, well, you're going to learn. And so I got him a QB coach, somebody he sees twice a week now. And that's all they do is the reps and the passes and the technique on how to throw. And when it comes to so put it in that perspective, like, oh, wow, I don't have the answers to this. And there's a gap in my performance here. So I'm going to go ask my coaches questions. I'm going to show up to practice. I'm going to do extra reps. And I'm going to hire this other coach to get me where I need to go. And that's good. That's fine. And we think that way in other areas of life, especially when it comes to our kids. Like, oh, I want to give them as many advantages as possible. But when it comes to marriage and parenting, oh, no. I don't want to ask for help. I don't want to get a coach or a mentor or a counselor, because then I'm broken and I need help. Maybe I'm even a mental case. Maybe maybe my marriage is not as good as I thought it was. Maybe this love story is just full of crap. But why do we? I would love to know, Seth, from your perspective, like that counselor point of view, and then Melanie, it's very rare that we get to hear a woman's perspective on the podcast. I would love to know a woman's perspective on that.
Oh, I have loads of thoughts and I'm excited, but I'll let Seth go first. Ladies first. Just kidding.
Nice. So to answer your question, was a great question, by the way. Larry Hagner, master of questions.
Tooting his own horn daily. Just kidding.
No, from a therapist perspective, whenever I'm sitting with someone, and I do more coaching now than I do therapy, but I've been a therapist for like 15 years, so tens of thousands of hours, right? Whenever I'm sitting with a couple or an individual who's part of a couple, it's like for most people, some people are freely, they say whatever, but for most people, admitting or thinking of themselves as having a problem, or like, oh, I don't know how to do this, is kind of frowned upon, right? And then like you put it in the context of guys, where we, try to white knuckle everything, then therapy, I mean, hell, I myself as a therapist have had trouble sometimes going to a therapist. I'm like, I got to make the appointment. I got to do this and this. I don't want to. Right. And I'm like, why? I'm a therapist. Like, this is what I do. Why do I still feel that way? And I think it's just maybe some sort of inherent condition that we want to like have that pride or that knowing that we can do it ourselves. Like, oh, I'm a self-made thing, but like all the research and every like anecdotal piece of advice points to the very opposite of that. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go farther, go together. There's like wisdom in the multitude. I mean, what is it in Proverbs in the Bible? What does it talk about? Like, oh shoot,
who knows?
I know a zillion verses in the Bible, but I can never. It's always a paraphrase. So it's like the idea of like, from a multitude of counselors comes good decisions, or something like that, right? And I'm thinking there is, at least maybe just in US kind of Western culture, there's a thing of like, oh no, I got this. I don't want to admit my faults. I don't want to talk to other guys who are doing better than me and kicking ass in all these areas. And I don't want to do that. Right. It's like your shirt. It's like iron sharpens iron. When we talk about our stuff, when guys talk about their stuff and are real and vulnerable, then every single time that I've done that, I get wisdom from it. I get helped out. I'm allowing other guys to serve me. Of course, I want to serve them. and I always feel better, and it's a better perspective. So when I have clients, they tell me their story. Of course, there's no judgment on my part as a therapist. I can help normalize like something that they've been carrying, because I've had so many clients say, am I crazy? Am I just so messed up for this? I'm like, dude, every single client I've ever talked to says the same thing you're saying. And just, they go, oh, really? I'm like, yes, people struggle with these same things. And then what does that do? It normalizes it. It helps them to know that they're not crazy. And then that shame cycle that we can go down all the time of thinking, I'm the worst. I can't believe I did this. I'm guilty. I'm all this stuff. He goes, oh, wait a minute. Maybe I'm human and I can get through this kind of thing. So that's my perspective that's the therapeutic perspective. It's like, okay, everything, like Marie Forleo talks about, everything is figure outable kind of thing. First, we have to share it. And even on my group call this morning, I, was sharing some stuff. I was like, guys, this is what the mastermind is about. This is what the group is about. If we share more, then you guys know how to help me. If you share, I know how to help you exactly how you need it. But if we're keeping things from one another and just like, kind of posturing stuff, then I don't know how to help you the most. Right. So leading with vulnerability kind of thing is what I try to do. And
I'm going to add my 800 cents to that. Really?
All right.
Are we ready?
What's your sense?
So you talked about this idea of like people hire coaches to help their kid get better at piano or being a quarterback or blah, blah, blah. Here's what I think. Here's where I think therapy tends to fail people. Therapy is like, let's use the quarterback analogy. So your son is going to train to be a quarterback. We walk into a therapy office to help our marriage. The quarterback trainer goes, okay, you need to do these things this many times over and over and over until you could do it in your sleep with your eyes shut. The marriage counselor goes, let's talk about the foundation of marriage. And you're like, what can you just tell me like what the hell to do? Like, tell me what not to do and what to do. And they're like, no. And they're trying to explain. It would be like if the quarterback trainer was like, let me tell your son all the history of football. You're like, I don't care. He needs to know how to throw a ball. He doesn't need to know the history of football. And I believe that therapy doesn't have enough tangibles. It doesn't have enough takeaways. It doesn't have enough, like literally, if you do this, that's what happens. If you do that, that's what happens. There's not enough clarity. There's not enough precision in it at all. And that's why I talked about this idea of like what gets measured gets managed. So people don't go to therapy because they know it doesn't have precision. They know they're going to sit on that freaking couch and talk about their feelings till they're blue in the face. They're going to come home and fight. They know that. Everybody knows that because they've done it. And now I'm not trying to knock therapy. There is.
So let me, as the therapist, and we've talked about this before, therapy is for healing.
Yes.
Coaching is for sometimes getting your ass kicked and moving forward and having very deep directives, right? Because I mean, of course, there's all like crappy thing that's happened to us, childhood, whatever. It's like, oh, I need to heal from that before I can move forward.
Well,
think
of it like physical therapy.
Right,
like if you broke your ankle, you go to physical therapy to relearn how to walk. But if you want to get an Olympic gold medal, you get a coach to learn how to run, right? They're different skill sets entirely. True. And why I believe most people don't do marriage work is because it's not tangible enough. Do you know how many marriage books I've read? A ton of them. Do you know how many of them have like okay, and here's what you do every day. Here's how you do it every week. Here's what counts. Here's what doesn't. None of them, except for mine. Just kidding. And that's really where I feel like people don't go because they don't see results in the friends around them that go. They see them go to therapy for 500 years and nothing is different and they still get divorced, right? And so I just feel like we've got to have a different strategy. I mean, I have a different strategy about it. I may toot my own horn if I'm allowed to, but my strategy is make it accessible, easy, doable, chartable, measurable. If it gets measured, we can see if we're progressing. If it's just feelings we talk about and whatever, we don't know. Have we progressed? I have no idea. You might think we have, but I might not. So let's fix that problem. And then more people will go get the help they need.
So let's talk about that. And by the way, thank you for both the perspectives. And, but how you talk about, so what you're saying, Melanie, is be very tactical with this, right? Instead of, and I wouldn't say instead of, but therapy might be like you said, Seth, right? It's for the healing process, right? Maybe it's for trauma. And maybe it's even just to understand, like, or the normalization, right? That's a big one. It's like, I'm not crazy here, am I? Like, this is kind of normal, right? And you're like, yeah, and then, so it's just helping someone understand that. But from a tactical aspect, what doesn't get measured doesn't get, what, I'm sorry, what'd you say again?
What gets measured gets managed.
What gets measured gets managed. Okay. So I used to do medical device sales and I used to manage people. And that was a quote that my boss used to tell me all the time. And fascinating though, like my brain is like totally clicking here. How does this show up in marriage? Like, give me some tactics.
Oh, are we ready to dive in?
Yeah.
So there is now, if you have sat with any number of people who have been married for any number of years, you hear the same thing over and over. Now, this is what helped me create all the stuff that I'm going to talk about, because I got sick of hearing the same freaking problem over and over again. I'm like, oh, there's a solution to this. What's problem number one? We don't talk enough. Or problem number two, we don't have sex enough. Or problem number three, you don't care about me. Mm-hmm. These are things that we can solve with systems, SOPs. And now I'm going to say this. I've been studying business as I've grown my own business. And I'm like, dude, business strategies are amazing. Apply it to a relationship. Amazing. Triply amazing. Right. And so all it takes is sitting down and going, okay, if we want to have growth in our marriage, we want to feel closer. We want to have more sex. We want to talk more clearly and regularly with each other. We don't want to sit and stare at our phones and feel dejected or whatever. Let's map it out. Let's put it in our calendar, but not just any calendar, because that stuff you don't care about it. It needs to be in the calendar that is just devoted to and dedicated to our health and wellness as a couple. So how many days a week are we having sex? How many times a month are we having sex? Are we tracking that? What do we have to do to get there? If you have a wife that is sex averse, this happens all the time. She doesn't want sex. She might do it, but it takes a lot for her to get in that mood. She can be in charge of that. Like, she can see it. Oh, on Wednesday, we finna get freaky on Wednesday. I better figure out, like, she can take ownership of how she's finna get freaky, so that it's not her husband's fault at the end of the week. You didn't give me enough foreplay and you didn't give me flowers. Like, I call bullshit on all of that. Mm-hmm. That is how we choose not to own our stuff in marriage. So now I made a planner. It's not out yet. This is my beta version. It's got all sorts of things in here, but it's the Power Couple Planner, and it's essentially systematizing. I mean, we do this in every other area of life. It is not, it doesn't lack emotion just because you wrote down how you want to hang out with your partner. Mm-hmm. It doesn't lack emotion. And that's where people get all weird. Like, oh, what? I'm going to put it in a calendar. Like, oh, you don't.
We got to schedule sex. Well, that doesn't feel spontaneous, or that, kills the mood.
You make a reservation at a restaurant, don't you?
Yeah. Like, I know you're a bodybuilder, and like, you have a regimen, right? And you don't go, I don't feel well. Yeah, it doesn't matter what you feel. You still like do it, right? But it's like, does it decrease the value of like what you're actually doing? Oh, I go to the gym at 6 a.m. every morning. Well, that's stupid. No, that we don't right. think about that. Like, we just took some flights, and like, pilots have very detailed mm-hmm. checklists on every right. single thing.
We sat on that runway because the pilots were late to get onto the plane, and they said, we will be taking off shortly. They need to go through their checklist. Like, they could have just like hauled out of there and flown away, but they know, no, that's not wise. We mm-hmm. have a detailed system that we have to follow all of the pieces to. Otherwise, it's not safe. Otherwise, this plane might crash. And so in my perspective, because I hear in my head what maybe some women might say, oh, well, and sorry, forgive me for being sexist there, but it's typically the women who think, well, that doesn't sound very romantic. Oh my gosh, to me, it seems like the most loving thing that you can do for yourself and your marriage. And of course, that bleeds over into family and kids and well-being and fulfillment, all of that. So I don't remember what your question was, but I really like what I said when I answered it.
No, it was really just around how do we plan these things? It's a fascinating thing. So Jessica and I, I'll share this with you. Jessica and I have given up having sex at night. And for multiple reasons. Number one, we're freaking tired by the time the night rolls around. And sex is, we'll both agree. We're like, yeah, sex is good at night, but it's way better during the day. Like, that's our view of it. But we also have these 4 boys who our bedroom has become like this revolving door at night, where the boys just kind of like come in and they mm-hmm. hang out. And it could be one of the littles. It could be a lot of times it's actually one of the bigs, and bigs meaning my 14 or 16-year-old. And my wife and I have just, I remember years ago, we were like, our bedroom is our bedroom. It's our, it's our sanctuary. You're not allowed in here. And now that's gone out the window. And it's gone out the window because we've decided now our kids don't sleep with us or anything like that.
Yeah.
But if they want to come in and like, watch a Netflix show with us, or they want to talk about their day, or they just want to like hang out with us. Yeah. Come on in. Because my 16-year-old, he's going to be out of here in 3 years.
Yeah.
My 14-year-old is going to be out of here in 4 or 5 years. So it's like,
stop saying that. I don't like hearing that.
I know it sucks. And
I have a 14-year-old.
Right. And that's the thing that's crazy is that I'm like, you know what? Like, this is not going to be forever. In fact, every night that they come in and hang out, Jessica and I are like, you don't think that was the last time, do you? Because like it could be the last time. Yeah. So we're okay with and with my days and how I schedule everything with Dad Edge. I work Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays full days, and then Wednesdays and Fridays I take half days off. And so Jessica, we'll be talking about our week, and she's like, yeah, so you want to have sex on Wednesday afternoon? And lately we have like totally scheduled it. And I always thought, I'm like, God bless, that just doesn't feel romantic at all. And it doesn't feel right. But like, what I can tell you is like, it's been very refreshing, because that's kind of new to us, and new to us meaning like we've only been doing it that way for a couple months. But it's been really cool because it's like, I know it's coming, and so does she. And then I know that time is dedicated for us being together. And I was like, man, if we're planning it, then it probably won't be all that great. It's been mind-blowingly great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And which has been pleasantly surprising. And it's all been planned, which is cool. And it also, the other thing too, is making that decision of let's not have sex at night anymore. It was kind of like, that kind of stings. It kind of feels like you're closing a chapter in a way, but it's also taken off a lot of pressure to be like, well, does she want to? Do I want to? If I want to and I pursue her, is she going to tell me she's too tired?
Right.
It's like, it takes away all that, which is cool.
Yeah. I have a lot of thoughts about it. I think one, awesome. That's awesome that the two of you decided like, hey, this way of doing this isn't working for us. Let's pivot, and you pivoted together. Like, that's so great. And kudos to you, to your horn for that. The other thought that I had was, most people don't allow that like complexity and flexibility in their minds because they believe that sex at night means something different than sex during the day. And it doesn't. That's just what we're putting into it in our brains. So release yourself from that. I also want to say that this doesn't mean you'll never have sex at night again, because your kids will eventually grow up and move away, and then you can be like adults that are normal again. But you said something that made me think of like, what is better? If you have like a football game where nobody plans it, and like everyone just sort of like, oh yeah, we're going to do this football game. Well, we didn't plan it though. But wait, hold on. We don't have a football. Wait, hold on. We don't have we don't have enough guys. Oh, we don't have a whatever. What is better? The one that's planned or the one that's not? Right? That applies to anything. You throw a lunch for your friend. What one's better? The one you planned or the one you didn't? The one where you don't have the like steak fillets to grill, or the one where you do, and you have wine and you have grapes and you have a cheese board, right? Planning means that you think about it ahead of time. It means you care even more. And for women, some men are lower desire, so this would apply to men too. But for a lot of women, they need time to be ready for sex. Some women don't. Some women are ready right away, and that's awesome. But some women are like, hey, I actually need like minimum 30 minutes to get my brain into the right place. And so if I see that it's on my calendar to have sex at, on this day or whatever, I can plan to do what it takes for me to get in that headspace. That might be doing yoga. That might be going on a walk. It might be rock climbing. It might be listening to Lizzo. I mean, it could be anything. But how amazing would it be, and what a gift it would be to my marriage to actually plan intimacy. I mean, like, why do we think it's great in every other context, but look down upon it?
You make reservations at a restaurant. I think you said that, but like, a great restaurant that's hard to get into. You're not just going to walk up there on a Friday night at 7 and expect to get a table for two.
Like, which wedding is more fun to attend? The one that's planned or the one that they wing?
It's true.
No, those are called elopements, and they're dumb and no one goes to them because they're boring and you're in the courthouse alone. Like there's a huge difference. And I think that if people try it, they will see the difference. The sex can be so much more fulfilling, so much more meaningful because you are planning to love one another more fully, if that makes sense.
One quick question, and I'd love to get both your takes on this as well from a man's perspective and from a woman's. Jessica, I remember early on in our relationship, like I would, I'd initiate sex and it would take her by surprise. And she'd be like, oh, she's like, well, give me a minute. I'm just not there yet, or like I'll pursue her. Right. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't in the mindset today, and I'll tell you, and I want all men to hear this, but I really want to hear, Melanie, your perspective, Seth, your perspective on working with just couples in general. I used to take ridiculous offense to that as a man. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I just don't do it for you, like, or I just don't turn you on like automatically, like that kind of hurts. But what I've realized is that's just a part of who Jessica is. So for instance, and it doesn't make her any less sexual of a being, like she's a high desire individual. But she also has to know that it's on her radar that day, right? Or it's on the horizon. And I've noticed that especially when we have like the day, like, okay, yeah, Wednesday afternoon, like that woman is so ready to go. It's not even funny, which is great. But I used to take offense to that. Been like, I would take it personally, but now I know that it really has very little to do with me. And it mostly has to do with like, she just needs to, I don't know what it is though, that actually happens in the mind or the heart where women have to, like, as you said, kind of get in that mindset. Maybe you can explain that.
Well, I mean, I'm going to use a really weird analogy. It's like this, because we see this with couples all the time, and we see it in all different areas of marriage, not just sex. So I'm going to use a really random one. So let's say I raise dogs, like we raise Australian Shepherds. They are the loves of my lives, right? But now imagine that Seth's like, okay, I'm going to really show Melanie that I love her. I'm going to hang the puppy's leashes on this bar here. She'll know that I love her. And I'm going to put the dog food bowls closer to the door so that she doesn't have to walk so far. But he doesn't tell me any of this. So I don't notice any of it because I'm like, whatever, dog food bowls, I don't care. And then he takes offense, like, well, you don't see how I support you in your dog raising business. Like, what? If you had asked me, how may I support you in your dog raising business? I would have told you, go get the shots for the puppies and get nail trimmers and get their dewormer. I would have said 3 things that have nothing to do with what he actually did, but because he didn't communicate any of them, I didn't see anything that he did. He gets offended. I get confused. It's that same pattern over and over again. Women are not typically thinking about sex most of the time. And we also are not thinking, we don't have that, what's it, instant responsive, what is it? Spontaneous desire.
Right.
Most do not have a spontaneous desire, meaning they just like, boom, I have a sexual thought. They have responsive desire, meaning some stimulus, something has to happen that kind of clicks us into the mode of like, oh, sex could happen now. And let's talk about and think about that. And so it's not that women never think about sex. It's not that women don't want sex. It's that if you don't let me know why you've moved all the dog bowls and all the leashes to that area, I don't know what the hell you want. Right. And this happens in sex for couples all the time. Like if you don't tell your wife, I am doing this because I love you. And I was going to say something really foul. I'm doing this because I want to make sweet, sweet love. I'll just replace it with that. She's not going to know. She doesn't think like you think. And that's what are you going to say? You say something foul. Let's do it. It's so funny.
No, I'm just thinking of, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Crazy Stupid Love.
No, I haven't.
What?
I don't watch anything.
Have you, Seth?
No, I don't. I haven't seen it now.
It's all
You're the worst at all that stuff.
Ryan Gosling and Steve Carell, they're the 2 main characters. Ryan Gosling is like this, of course, young, good looking dude who, can take home any woman he wants. He's single. Right. And then there's a new divorcee, it's Steve Carell. He just got his heart broken. His wife cheated on him. And basically Ryan Gosling takes Steve Carell under his wing and teaches him how to talk to girls and, confidence and, how to dress and all that. And one of the things he's like, so, let's review everything I've taught you over the past several months. And he goes through everything and he's like, and then, you just you don't ask the girls, you just tell them that they are going home with you and they are so ready to make sweet, sweet love to you. And that's just what it reminded me of as you were talking. I was like, oh my
Sweet,
God,
sweet
that sounds like that
to
movie.
you.
To you, yeah.
That's delightful.
Yeah, I
mean,
don't know if that works or not, but yeah.
But I think,
Right.
yeah, like it's really women and men just think differently typically, right? But I will say every person in every couple thinks differently from one another. So there's not one way to do it, but there is one way to guarantee that there might be success. And that's to talk about it and to schedule it and to have a system for what do we do? Like when it's just like running a business or running a home or buying groceries. There's nothing different about it, but we have made it somehow this thing we cannot speak about before it's happening. And that is to our detriment.
I was on a call last night and one of the dudes was talking about scheduling sex, and something happened to where they didn't, right? And then, and this happens, I've talked to a lot of people about this. It's like, okay, we're scheduling sex. It doesn't happen. And then the guy usually, and I've done this too, usually like, okay, expects the wife to go, oh, well, we missed a night. So, well, I know that it's going to be on her mind the next night. So yeah, but no, it just gets lost in the shuffle kind of thing. And then we're like, okay, well, we missed 2 scheduled nights. So we're going to do it twice in one day to make up for that, And it's like, no, that usually isn't how one of the partners are thinking. So what can we do is like a contingency plan. Okay. Again, it's just like a business plan or something. It's like, hey, we didn't hit our quarter 4 numbers. Okay. Well, what are we going to do?
Right.
Are we just going to go, oh, great. Well, that was a stupid plan. No, it's like
have a strategy. I mean,
you have a strategy, right? So it's like, I really just put out the simplest answer out there. It's like, oh, well, what if you just put a plan? If you miss a Wednesday, just automatically the both of try again the very next night, not like have a makeup marathon sex session, we've missed 4 times in a row. Okay, let's,
if you want to do that.
Yeah, if you want to, sure. But that's the thinking around that. And I would encourage, like from a therapist point of view, I would encourage the guys who may hear this as it shouldn't be an offense, right? Like you were talking about, Larry. I think we've all, dudes have all been rejected. I thought I was doing the right thing. And what does this mean? Am I not like strong enough or sexy enough, or does she not desire me or whatnot? Like we get into our heads pretty quickly about that. But if we can go, oh, wait a minute, she's thinking about things that have zero to do with me, right? Kids, work, I don't know, the dogs barfing, whatever. It's a million different things. And I know, so I'm guilty of like, being butthurt about that stuff. But I know that the times where I go, oh, wait a minute, this is not about me. And that's 100% okay. Then that helps me to remove myself from my feelings around that and go, oh, okay.
Right.
That's cool.
I'm going to say one last thing about that too. Women can take much more ownership in this than they have been, in understanding that if men feel rejected, like it's a deep rejection when sex doesn't happen, if you want to make your husband feel really great and accepted, step up. Like, do it for that reason. Do you love your husband? Do it for that reason. Like, we don't have to feel magic roses and like, oh, and everything tingles and then I'll have sex. Like, maybe just do it because you freaking love your husband. Try that. Try scheduling sex yourself, lady. I'm so mad at everyone right now.
So angry.
So mad at you.
I want to add one more thing just for men in general. I'd love to get a female's perspective on this one. Is if the answer is no, don't pout.
Oh God,
like,
please.
Yes, seriously, don't pout. Don't get pissed. I remember early on, I'll totally out myself early in our marriage, when Jessica and I was definitely the higher driver in our earlier years. And I would definitely say, I'm still a high driver. Not much has changed, but Jessica's now like gotten to, I guess, because of her peak and all that, like we're definitely at the same level now, which is good. But I used to pout. I used to get pissed. Like, I'd be like, man, it's been like 3 days and I try. And of course, I would just get angry.
Yeah.
And, I would pout, and I didn't even understand how unattractive that was.
Right. I liken it to like a baby without his pacifier. Like,
yeah.
Is that fun?
No.
I took it away and now that kid's like, oh, get back. And they're just like whining and like it's so gross. It is the least attractive thing possible. And I know, and again, I want to encourage women also to like know that that's how men feel. So now I'm not going to say, yeah, go ahead and pout all day. Like encourage them. Hey, brosif, broski, we can figure this out a different time. But right now isn't the time to have sex, maybe tomorrow or in an hour from now, but let's not be idiot babies about it. No, you don't say that. That wouldn't be nice. But like let's figure this out together. Like encourage him, lift him up, even if sex can't happen right then. But yeah, men, don't do that.
One thing that I would also add to like, okay, the dudes listening to this, and I found success in it. Have I done it every single time? No. And I'm gonna out myself too. Yes, I've been a pouty baby, right? And kind of butthurt about it. I think if we're all honest, yes, dudes have done that before. But if you the times where I have like made my desires known and fully transparent and then given her the choice, I mean, she always has a choice. Obviously, it's not like, being weird or anything like that, but like let her know that I am detached from the outcome. Like I remember like very specifically, there was one night I was like, hey, I'm feeling it tonight. Let's get in bed early. Let's do all this stuff. Let's have fun. Now I'm going to go to the bedroom and, set the mood and stuff like that. And I'm going to kind of like stretch out and meditate and do some like stretching. It was basically a workout. I would love for you to join me. If not, hey, I'm cool. Then we'll just go to sleep. But my intentions.
He means I would love for you to join me to have sex, not just meditate with me.
Yeah, not just like,
Let's be clear.
Stretch on the floor or anything like that. But and then of course, what was that like an appealing invitation to her? Yes, absolutely. And we ended up, this is like, oh, he's not a baby. He's not gonna be butthurt, but he did say what he wanted. And that's great. And I was able to like detach from the outcome. Of course, I wanted a certain outcome, but I wasn't going to, lose my mind if it didn't happen. And so when I'm in that frame of mind, when I can detach, like Jocko Willink talks about, like detach yourself from the situation, I found that helpful to me. Do I do it all the time? No. So I'm not like, BSing here. But when I have done that, it's always worked in other arenas too.
Right.
I like that a lot. Detach from the outcome. I think the women in our lives feel that energy when all of our validation is based on her yes. So it's kind of like if you want the yes so freaking bad, sometimes the way you'll be like, yeah, it's okay if you say no. But I was thinking about maybe like, like going in the bedroom and doing some stretching. And if you're not on board with it, like I totally understand. Like it's not a big deal. Like we have other nights. It's, I won't be upset, but I'll be doing that if you're, and as my wife says, because every now and again, like years and years ago, that's kind of the way I used to communicate with it. Yeah. She's like, it just feels gross and unsafe. And now I'm just like, hey, here's where I'm at. Wherever you're at is cool, great, whatever. Right. But this is what's on my mind.
Right.
And it's so much more. And I think the message that you also send is like, he's okay, even if I tell him no. Like if I say, hey, I appreciate that, but now is not the night. And I think for the most part, guys, like I know when I'm in that mental place, I'll be like, no worries. Cool. And that's much more reassuring and safe. And to quote my wife, not gross when we speak that way.
Right. And I want to say it runs much deeper. If I can trust that you're not going to fall apart, let me use a different example from sex. If I can trust that you're not going to fall apart when we get a flat tire, we got a flat tire a weekend ago. And there are many men who would fall apart. What the hell? I can't believe I just got this new, and all of a sudden there they are. They've turned into a toddler because of a flat tire. But Seth doesn't do that. And I don't do that. Like we said in the beginning, like we're actually really, really great in crisis. And if I can trust that I knock a whole gallon of milk on the floor and it spills everywhere and nobody's falling apart. And if I can trust that you ask for Seth, I would say sex, you ask for sex, but I don't want it, you're not going to fall apart. If I can trust that about you, man, that trust runs through everything in a whole new way, but also what gets measured gets managed. So if I decline sex 100 times in a row, that's also not fair. And you should be questioning, can you trust me? Do I fall apart every time, And so this is where I want to put a lot more ownership on the women to show up differently. Most women think they need all the roses and Ryan Gosling and a canoe and swans to be able to have sex. Hey, newsflash, you don't. You just need to make a choice that you want to, and it's worth it. And then measure That sounds funny. Measure the results of that.
Measure.
That cracked me up. So in that, again,
hold on. Are we good on time? I want to make sure we're good on time.
Yeah, I need to end because I got one more. I've got a show that I'm doing here in a
Yeah, I don't want to.
But that's okay.
No, you're good. So don't say anything.
Okay.
I wanted to make sure that we're honoring your time.
No, you guys are good. So let's go ahead and wrap up. So where can the men find you? And we do have female listeners too, by the way. So where can people find you?
Yeah, well, it's go to anatomyofus.com. You'll find everything there that we offer. There's a resources tab that talk about the coaching that we do and the other things that we have.
Right. We've got free resources, like you can download 20 questions to the best sex ever. Like we have all sorts of free resources. But yeah, if you just go to anatomyofus.com, you will find them all there.
Outstanding. Well, guys, thanks so much for coming back on. I mean, I can't remember how long ago it's been. I think 2020. So
far too long, my friend.
Yeah. Almost 3 years. So it's kind of crazy to have you guys back, which has been awesome. So
yeah,
gentlemen, you won't have to look far to find everything. Just head on over to thedadedge.com/Friday76 for this show. Again, thedadedge.com/Friday76. Melanie, can I ask you a favor?
Yes.
It's because no other woman has ever been able to do this. I always end the show with go out and live legendary, but I would love for you to be the first female to say, go out and live legendary.
All right. Is everyone ready for it?
Let's hear it.
Men, go out and live legendary.
There you go. That's awesome. Gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, thedadedge.com/Friday76 for all the show notes. Appreciate you.